It has been an incredibly tough couple of months for our entire family, but I've had a fantastic medical team who have taken great care of me, for which I'm...
The circumstances brought them closer, creating a bond that no one could have predicted. Behind the palace walls, something happened that no royal training could have prepared them for. Kate Middleton and Prince William, always composed under the harshest spotlights, were left in tears by their daughter, Princess Charlotte. There were no scandals, no ceremonies, just a single heart-wrenching moment that stunned even the most seasoned insiders. Whispers raced through the halls. What did they see? What transformed their playful little girl into someone so extraordinary that it shook them to their core? This wasn't about crowns or cameras, it was something far deeper, far more powerful. And it was only the beginning. No one inside the palace expected what Princess Charlotte would do that day, and no one could hide the tears that followed. In a world where control is everything, this single moment broke through all royal walls. Insiders say that Charlotte didn't just act differently, she became someone new. Without warning, without preparation, Kate's eyes filled with tears, followed by William's silent breakdown. For a brief second, they weren't the future king and queen. They were just two parents watching their little girl grow beyond them. What stunned them wasn't a public event or a formal duty, it was something raw. It was a natural confidence that Charlotte showed, effortless and uncoached, that revealed a powerful transformation happening right before their eyes. The moment whispered a new reality. Charlotte wasn't a child to be sheltered anymore. She was rising, stronger, faster, and more gracefully than anyone had dared to imagine. And this emotional shock was just the beginning of a transformation that would shake the royal family in ways no one saw coming. Sometimes, a father's pride is hidden in a single glance. For Prince William, that glance said everything about his daughter. In a world where royal duties often overshadow personal feelings, William found himself caught in a silent battle between tradition and raw emotion. Watching Charlotte grow has never been just about preparing her for a future role. It has been about recognizing the quiet, unstoppable spirit blossoming before his very eyes. Insiders say that William rarely speaks about the depth of his emotions publicly, but those close to the family have seen it in the small moments, the quick smiles exchanged, the casual touch on her shoulder, the whispered nickname, Mignonette, meaning small and sweet. He reveals it all in that single word, uttered softly between father and daughter. It carries more weight than any royal decree. It's not for the cameras, not for the crowd. It's a private language only they understand, a thread woven from pride, love, and an unspoken fear of how quickly time slips away. At official events, the signs are there if you know where to look. William's steady gaze follows Charlotte as she confidently greets officials. His quiet nod when she curtsies with grace. The way he leans slightly toward her when she speaks, as if every word she says matters more than anything else in that room filled with dignitaries and flashing cameras. It is the bond of a father realizing that his little girl is already stepping into a world that demands so much more than just appearances. It demands strength, poise, and heart. For William, every gesture Charlotte makes is a bittersweet reminder, a reminder that the days of hand-holding and whispered encouragements are fading. His interactions with her go beyond royal tradition or public appearances. There is something special about the way he looks at his daughter. He knows that feeling all too well. It can also be one of the most challenging times for many families, one that should not be faced alone. That is why his pride carries such an edge of sadness. He is proud, deeply proud, but he also knows the cost of that crown, the cost of growing up in the shadows of history and expectation. Every proud smile he gives her at public events hides 1,000 unspoken wishes that she would remain untouched a little longer, that she could hold on to her innocence just a little more fiercely. But Charlotte, with her natural grace and fearless gaze, marches forward without hesitation. With every step she takes, William's heart swells and breaks a little more. It is in these small, easily missed moments that William's true feelings pour through. A hand placed gently on Charlotte's back as she navigates a crowd. A protective glance when she answers a reporter's question with unexpected maturity. A laugh shared when no one else is looking. These are the fleeting snapshots of a bond that is not built on royal expectation, but on something much stronger, unbreakable trust and unconditional love. The emotional weight of Charlotte's transformation is not something William can shoulder alone. It radiates through their family, changing how they move through a world that constantly watches and judges. Yet, amidst the duty and the pressure, William holds on to something that no amount of royal training could ever manufacture. But it wasn't just William who noticed the incredible change. Kate's heart was about to be shaken too. Behind every poised princess is a mother who quietly builds her wings, and Kate Middleton was that guiding hand. In a world that demands perfection under the merciless gaze of cameras and critics, it would have been easy for Kate to raise her daughter by the book. William and I have been doing everything we can to process and manage this privately for the sake of our young family. The moment that truly struck people came during a visit to the Chelsea Flower Show. Charlotte wasn't tagging along. Kate whispered lessons of kindness, courage, and resilience into her daughter's ear. For William, you could see it in his eyes, the realization that Charlotte's greatest protection would not come from the palace walls, but from the emotional armor she built from within. It was never about memorizing rules for public appearances or rehearsing lines for interviews. It was about knowing who she was when no one else was watching. It was about grounding her in something stronger than titles, something unshakable. At school drop-offs, Kate melted into the crowd, dressed simply, blending into the chaos of parents and children without drawing attention. Her message to Charlotte was clear: you are one of them. You belong here, not just behind golden gates. Even in the most public moments, Kate's parenting remained invisible yet undeniable. Take Wimbledon, for instance. Charlotte, overwhelmed by the intensity of the event, looked to her mother with uncertainty flashing across her young face. Kate didn't correct her. She didn't pressure her to perform. She simply brushed a strand of hair behind Charlotte's ear and whispered a few calming words, just enough, just in time. In that moment, Charlotte didn't stand taller because she was commanded to. She stood taller because she was loved. Kate was never building a perfect princess. She was building a strong,
Kate Middleton
emotionally
sacrifices
grounded
to
girl
shield
who could
Charlotte
stand on
from
her
the
own
harsher
2
sides
feet,
of public
whether she
life
wore
were
a tiara
countless.
or not. Balancing
And that
royal
strength
duty
didn't
with
happen by
bedtime
accident.
stories, world tours with
It was the
stolen
result
moments
of
in
countless
playgrounds.
unseen
She raised her
sacrifices.
daughter not for the crown, but for herself. These choices, however, came at a cost. Kate faced criticism from those who thought she was too protective and pressure from others who wanted Charlotte to step into the spotlight sooner, grander, louder. Yet, Kate stood her ground. She understood something the world often forgets: title may open doors, but only a strong spirit can walk through them. Through Kate's unwavering guidance, Charlotte didn't grow into a rehearsed symbol of royalty. Instead, she blossomed into a real young girl with a sense of self that even the harshest scrutiny could not erode. The poise the world now sees was not built by royal tutors or image consultants. It was built in schoolyards, living rooms, gardens, and whispered moments shared only between mother and daughter. It was built through trust, love, and the courage to protect what truly mattered. And just when Kate thought she had seen it all, Charlotte's next public moment would leave even her stunned. One simple outing revealed a side of Princess Charlotte no one was ready for, not even her own parents. The Chelsea Flower Show, a gathering more known for its grandeur and pageantry than life-altering moments, became the unlikely backdrop for a transformation that rippled through the royal family and beyond. What was meant to be a quiet family appearance turned into a defining chapter in Charlotte's story, one that left William and Kate grappling with the undeniable truth: their daughter was no longer the little girl they once knew. From the moment Charlotte stepped into the gardens, it was clear something had changed. She didn't simply tag along behind her parents or hide in their shadows. She moved with an ease that silenced conversations and drew quiet stares. She engaged with designers, asked thoughtful questions, and listened with a focus that seemed far beyond her years. Every movement, every word, carried a sense of belonging, as if she had always been destined to stand in places like these, not as an accessory to royalty, but as a figure of her own making. William and Kate, seasoned veterans of public life, were caught off guard in a fleeting yet powerful exchange of glances. They shared a realization that needed no words. They were watching a new chapter unfold. It wasn't a rehearsed performance or a coached display for the cameras, it was real and raw. Charlotte was crossing an invisible line, the subtle yet profound shift from playful child to poised young royal, and neither of them could slow it down. That moment hit them harder than they had ever anticipated. William, who had spent years shielding his children from the weight of the crown, saw the future pressing in faster than he dared to admit. Kate, who had fought so fiercely to preserve Charlotte's childhood, felt the bittersweet ache of pride and loss blending into one. Their daughter wasn't just growing up, she was stepping into her own light, a light powerful enough to stand on its own, even against the shadow of 1,000 years of tradition. It wasn't long before whispers began stirring behind palace walls. Staff members who had known Charlotte since infancy exchanged knowing looks. Advisors who had prepared for George's rise suddenly found themselves watching Charlotte with new and curious eyes. Even seasoned royal watchers couldn't deny it, there was something extraordinary unfolding, and it was happening faster than anyone had expected. Charlotte's transformation at the Chelsea Flower Show wasn't marked by grand declarations or official pronouncements. It was written in the way she carried herself, the way she met every gaze head-on without flinching, the way she stood slightly ahead of her parents without needing to be called forward. She wasn't defying the royal playbook, she was quietly rewriting it. And from that day onward, subtle but powerful shifts began rippling through both the palace and the public. Sometimes, it's not the grand ceremonies, but the quiet milestones that change everything forever. Princess Charlotte's journey wasn't built on headlines or coronations. It was crafted through simple moments that unfolded quietly yet left a permanent mark on her family and the monarchy itself. While the world watched, often unaware, Charlotte was writing her own story, one silent victory at a time. Her first big step came with a move few outside the royal circle fully understood, leaving behind the protective walls of Willox's nursery and stepping into the more public arena of Thomas's Battery. This wasn't just about a new uniform or a new set of teachers. It symbolized her first true crossing into the world of expectations, cameras, and scrutiny. Yet Charlotte walked into it with a steadiness that seemed almost unshakable, no clinging hands, no fearful glances, just a quiet, determined spirit ready to meet the world. It didn't stop there. Each public appearance became another stone laid along her growing path. Her confident waves at royal events, once shy and tentative, now carried a sense of certainty. She wasn't just mimicking royal behavior, she was embodying it. Crowds cheered, photographers clicked, but Charlotte never seemed overwhelmed. If anything, she seemed to understand, perhaps far better than anyone realized, that these moments were not performances, they were declarations of who she was becoming. Yet nothing captured the emotional weight of her transformation more deeply than the day the world said goodbye to Queen Elizabeth II. Amid the sea of somber faces, mourning traditions, and heavy crowns, there stood Charlotte, small in stature but towering in grace. Her curtsy, timed with a dignity far beyond her years, pierced through the ceremony's heavy silence. It wasn't just an act of respect, it was a moment of acceptance of history, of family, of responsibility. William and Kate's pride that day wasn't shouted from balconies or declared in interviews. It was written in their eyes, in the way they looked at Charlotte as if seeing her for the first time again. A bittersweet pride that mixed joy with sorrow, knowing their daughter was stepping deeper into a world that demanded more than innocence could ever afford. Each milestone Charlotte achieved was another silent goodbye to the life they had fought to preserve for her. And still, these moments were not isolated. They wove together into something far greater, a living, breathing transformation captured forever in quiet snapshots and glances exchanged behind the walls of palaces and ceremonies. Every step Charlotte took was not just a movement forward for her, but a reminder to her parents and to the watching world that the future was not waiting politely at a distance. Inside the walls of Kensington and rushing in, Charlotte's influence was felt in ways no certainty than anyone or grand ceremonies could ever capture. But Charlotte's growth wasn't the loudest of public eyes. She didn't need to be. Inside the palace, she was becoming something even more remarkable, herself, beyond the way she understood when to act and when to observe. Princess Charlotte was already stepping into her siblings. Charlotte often held the invisible reins, stepping into a powerful role. She had a remarkable way of calming storms before they erupted, steering moments back focused on her polished waves and confident curtsies. Something the palace staff affectionately nicknamed her the Palace Doors. Prince Louis's boundless energy sometimes bordered on chaos, was becoming a leader, but a single glance or quiet word from Charlotte often shaping its future from within. A quick hand squeeze, a whispered joke, and suddenly Louis would regain his composure. It was a gift, far beyond her years, a natural instinct to lead, not by command, but by quiet presence. Even Prince George, the heir to the throne, found himself looking to Charlotte for silent reassurance during public events. When the pressure built and expectations loomed heavy, it was Charlotte's steady gaze and calm demeanor that anchored him. If Charlotte moved forward, George followed. If she held her ground, so did he. It was subtle, almost imperceptible to the outside world, but inside the royal family, it was unmistakable. Charlotte wasn't just supporting her brothers, she was setting a tone for a new generation. William and Kate were watching closely. They recognized that Charlotte's quiet leadership was not something to be controlled or molded, it was something to be protected and nurtured. This realization began to influence their parenting style in ways few could see. They started trusting their children more, allowing them to navigate small challenges on their own, encouraging emotional intelligence over rigid protocol. Charlotte's strength wasn't just lifting her siblings, it was reshaping the very blueprint of modern royal upbringing. This hidden role Charlotte had embraced revealed a truth many overlooked: leadership isn't always about standing at the front or wearing a crown. Sometimes, it's about knowing when to listen, when to act, and when to simply be the calm in someone else's storm. Charlotte was mastering that art with a grace that even the oldest and most experienced royals might envy. Yet, even inside those palace walls, an even bigger transformation was unfolding, one no one had expected. The path laid before Princess Charlotte wasn't just royal, it was revolutionary. In a palace bound by centuries of tradition, where every move had long been scripted by birthright and duty, William and Kate were daring to imagine something radically different for their daughter. They understood that the world their children would inherit would not be the same world their ancestors ruled. It would demand more than titles, it would demand resilience, wisdom, and the freedom to forge new paths rather than merely walk the ones laid before them. Behind the royal formality, quiet preparations were already unfolding, not rehearsals for endless ceremonies or lessons in outdated etiquette, but real training for a future that stretched far beyond the palace walls. Charlotte was reportedly being introduced to skills no traditional royal curriculum would dare prioritize: tactical driving for safety, international relations to navigate the shifting tides of diplomacy, and critical thinking courses designed to sharpen her instincts, not dull them with rote tradition. William and Kate were not just preparing her to wait on balconies, they were preparing her to stand firm in a world that wouldn't hand her anything simply because of who she was. They were raising a young woman who could choose her path, a princess who would not be boxed into a life solely dictated by history. If Charlotte someday dreamed beyond the confines of royal service, whether into humanitarian work, diplomacy, or an entirely different path, her parents were determined that she would have the tools, the courage, and most importantly, the permission to pursue it. This wasn't rebellion, it was evolution. A quiet but powerful break from the rigid molds that once trapped royal children in golden cages they could never escape. By giving Charlotte this freedom, William and Kate were doing more than preparing one child, they were setting a new standard. They were showing future generations that a royal legacy need not be a chain. It could be a foundation, a launching point into a broader, richer life, filled with meaning, choice, and authenticity. This was a seismic shift that few outsiders fully grasped yet, but the ripples had already begun to spread. For Charlotte, the future was no longer a narrow corridor lined with ceremonial obligations. It was a horizon, vast, open, and waiting for her to shape it however she chose. She would carry the weight of her heritage, yes, but she would not be crushed by it. She would honor the crown, but she may never be owned by it. And through it all, amid the training, the duties, and the dreams, one thing remained constant: the heart of a little girl still finding her place in the world. From playful child to poised young royal, Princess Charlotte's journey was more than just a royal story, it was a human one. Beneath the crowns and ceremonies, beyond the balcony waves and polished appearances, lay the story of a little girl who, step by step, transformed before the world's eyes. What began as a series of quiet milestones grew into a force that even the most seasoned royals could not ignore. In the end, it wasn't the titles or the traditions that touched the world, it was the raw emotional journey of growth, resilience, and quiet revolution. For William and Kate, Charlotte's rise was never just about preparing her for duty. It was about preserving her spirit, nurturing her strength, and guiding her toward a future where she could stand both as a royal and as her own person. They watched, with bittersweet pride, as each wave, each confident stride, each brave curtsy whispered a simple truth: they were no longer just protecting their daughter, they were witnessing her become someone the world could believe in.